Hi everyone, this is Sonora Slater and you're listening to Agricola with the California Aggie, UC Davis's student-run newspaper. Maybe you've read our articles online or picked up a paper from the newsstand inside Shields Library, but we're coming to you now in an audio format. I'm excited to dive into providing you a deeper look at the people, places, and events we cover every day at the Aggie, and I hope you enjoy listening. Each quarter, the California Aggie meets with Chancellor Gary May and administrators to ask about current events from the past 10 weeks. We met with them over Zoom yesterday on May 30th, and while we will publish the full transcript sometime next week, I wanted to share some of their answers with you today. First up, UAW Local 4811, the union representing academic workers across the UC campuses, called on union members at UC Davis to strike starting on Tuesday, May 28th. They've cited, quote, unfair labor practices, end quote, including the arrests of UAW members engaging in peaceful protests. The UC has argued that this strike is illegal. Here's administrators to tell us more.
UAW 4811 has just authorized a strike in response to the UC's unprecedented acts of intimidation and retaliation directed at their rights as academic employees to free speech, protest, and collective action. UAW has listed various concerns to negotiate and discuss with university leaders, such as the right to free speech, divestment, and disclosure regarding university funding sources, and investments and amnesty for students and faculty who are arrested or face disciplinary action due to protests. How does UC Davis plan to address the strike and demands of strikers, as well as the potential interruption to education posed by the event?
I'll start, and maybe I'll ask Ari to give some color as well. The strike last year, or year before last, whenever it happened, was a difficult situation for the entire campus community. And we always hope that any strike activity does not meaningfully disrupt teaching or learning or campus operations. It's the position of the university system, the University of California system, that this strike is illegal and violates the collective bargaining agreement that was reached in 2022. There is a contract that has been in place since that collective bargaining was concluded. And it specifically says in that contract that the UAW will not strike during the period the contract is in place. So the university has asked the Public Employment Relations Board, PERB, as it's called, for an injunction to stop the UAW from striking, and we await that outcome. I will say that many of the same issues that are raised by the UAW in their strike authorization vote were raised by the encampment students and others, and we do think that that's a constructive conversation to have. We just don't think the strike is the appropriate way to have the conversation.
So I'll jump in here and actually maybe amplify a bit part of what Chancellor May said there at the very end. I was disappointed to see that this is a so-called stand-up strike, which is to say that the strike happens at different places at different times. And our campus has been constructively engaged with the leadership of of the encampment on the quad. And so I was surprised to see a stand-up strike on our campus based on of its reasons for striking. I would say further that the strike is creating additional stress for students, for faculty, and for staff. We recognize that. We're in the process of considering ways that we can try and mitigate some of those issues. We're going to, as we did during the previous strike, find ways to find additional support for faculty who might need help because they're facing significant additional work around grading, leading sections, otherwise maintaining the integrity of the curriculum. I can't speak on behalf of student affairs. I'll let Sherry jump in if she wants to, but I will say that we had some unfortunate activity the other day that some classes were disrupted, and that the student affairs team has reached out to students who were very uncomfortable because of some of the ways in which those events transpired. And more broadly, students who are facing impacts because of the strike, as ever, can reach out to case managers and others in student affairs for a variety of different kinds of support.
We also asked administrators various questions about the pro-Palestine encampment currently located on the Memorial Union Quad. Here's Dana, UC Davis's Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, with their response.
I'm just going to jump in here if the chancellor doesn't mind. I know that you've submitted, I think, at least three questions, maybe four questions about that. We've made a public statement on May 13th, and that's going to remain our public comment on the situation. I hope you understand we're just preferring to not undermine the ongoing engagement process and the communication that we're having with the students. So we'd rather just leave our public comment to what it was on May 13th.
The most recent statement from the university on the encampment reads as follows. On Monday, May 13th, UC Davis leaders met with students representing the encampment, known as PULP, or the Popular University for the Liberation of Palestine, on the Memorial Union Quad. Campus leaders expressed appreciation for the students' efforts to keep the encampment safe and peaceful, and listened to the students' concerns about the ongoing humanitarian crisis in Gaza. UC Davis leaders said the conversation was productive and that they will continue to engage with the students about issues they are raising. As Chancellor May stated on May 6th, UC Davis cannot and will not discipline students for speech protected by the First Amendment, even though he recognizes that such speech sometimes distresses or inconveniences members of the campus community. We remain committed to keeping the campus peaceful and welcoming for people of all backgrounds. The full transcript of our interview with Chancellor May and other administrators will be available soon, and includes questions about ASUCD elections, the Arboretum Restoration Project, the closure of the 5th and 6th floors of the Hutchinson parking structure, and more. For today, it's time to enter into a less serious topic for the rest of our show. All year, it's been a running joke on the California Aggie's opinion desk that they simply write an absurd amount of content about Taylor Swift. Album reviews, Ticketmaster complaints, criticisms of consumeristic merch buying, you name it, they've written about it. So for today's episode, I invited two of our opinion columnists and one humorist onto the show to dive into the things they've written about this year, and really just have some fun talking about music. I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as we did. We can go in this direction and just introduce ourselves. So, I am Sonora Slater. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Aggie.
I'm Claire Schad, and I'm an opinion columnist for the Aggie.
I'm Molly Thompson, and I'm also an opinion columnist. I'm Carmel Raviv, and I'm a humor columnist at the Aggie.
Great. I am surrounded by people with opinions, which is what we need.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We have opinions, and you have ears. So.
That's the humor. That's the humor one.
Yeah,
she's got it. So today, obviously, we're going to be talking a little bit about Taylor Swift, and some of you might be about to turn your radios off, but stay tuned, okay? Because we've got a wide variety of topics. All three of these writers have written enough content about Taylor Swift this year that it's become a running joke on the opinion desk. And they've really covered a variety of topics, doing reviews of her more recent albums, but also talking about the issues with consumerism and having, needing 4 vinyls to make a clock out of your vinyls, and crazy stuff like that, as well as all of the interesting stuff going on with Ticketmaster, Taylor Swift's romance with Travis Kelce. Oh yeah, you sports people are tuning in. Let's talk about the Tortured Poets Department.
I've listened to snippets here and there. I distinctly remember when she announced that she was dropping the album at the Grammys after she won her award. Right?
Yeah.
And the whole world was you know what? Taylor Swift's been pissing me off. How dare she announce that she's dropping an album? And I was what is happening? Y'all, what? Because this was right a week after Travis Kelce won the Super Bowl. They had their whole moment, whatever. She was just everything. She has been everything everyone was talking about. But her I feel her popularity at that point, her Twitter trending, whatever, was up there. And I think when you just get too close to the top, people just want to hate. People just need we'll just nitpick at anything and just decide, can we collectively say that the Taylor Swift spell has been lifted and we don't care that she's dropped another album, whatever. And then
I care.
Yeah. And then 2 days later, everyone forgets about that. And then the album comes out, everyone loves it, and everyone's like, and then you're back on it. And then it just kind of shows me, like, how stable she is in her position and, like, how much power she has. Like, she can have haters just sprout out just for fun, and those are the same people, like, listening to her music. And it's like, you can't dismantle her. So that's, yeah.
I will say, though, I don't know, you mentioned that after, like, oh, it drops and everyone loves it. I think this one, I heard a lot of people that really didn't. Like, Like, I think that it had a much less enthusiastic reception than a lot of her previous work did. And I don't think that it was people being like, I don't like it. I think that a lot of people were just like, meh, didn't stand out to me.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of goes back to, do you guys all watch Miss Americana?
Yes.
How there was that whole through line of her being like, they always expect us to be new, they want us to be shiny, and you have to keep reinventing yourself in order to gain traction and keep your place in the industry, in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then people are just kind of like, meh, it's over. You know, and obviously she's not over, but I think this album was not a reinvention of herself. It wasn't, like, sonically, it wasn't new. I think there are some new aspects to it, some things that make it stand out from the other albums, but I think as a sound collective, it's not that revolutionary. And so I think that that's one of the reasons that a lot of people didn't latch onto it and didn't think it was such a big deal as much as some of her other stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of people did like it a lot, but I think in general the consensus was that it wasn't as special or spectacular as a lot of people expected.
I think that it just kind of reminded people, like, what they love listening about Taylor Swift, like, it's the lyrics. It's, like, analyzing the, like, what does this line say about this relationship? Like, how does this poetically define what this part of her life was, and how can we relate to that? It just felt like what the real Taylor Swift fans liked about her music.
It is like a crazy album title, though.
It's
like,
crazy. And I think hot take, she's so funny.
Yeah.
I think everyone thinks that she's such a serious lyricist.
No.
Like, oh my god, this is poetic. We have to take everything at face value and dissect it. But, like, some of it's just so funny.
I think this is her funniest album. I feel like that's been my main, like, take to people, like, when telling them about, like, the Torture Poets department. Like, obviously a lot of it is so depressing, but I genuinely think it's her funniest album. Like, writing You Know How to Ball and Aristotle.
Yeah.
It's like so funny. I think people have also said when Torture Poets came out, they were like, yeah, it's gonna be like Midnights for, like, or it's not like Midnights where it came out and everyone loved it. And I was like, not everyone loved it when Midnights came out either. Like, I think a lot of her albums for me have been, like, growers, where, like, again, like, when Folklore came out, I listened to it and I was like, this is nice, they all kind of sound the same. It is now, like, consistently one of my favorite albums, probably of all time. And Midnights, when it first came out, I had a little listening party with my friends, and we were all looking at each other and we were like, see it? What is this? I don't know.
When I first heard Antihero, I was like, oh.
I know.
And, like, now when I listen to it, I'm like, I think it's really good.
It's great.
Yeah. But it's when you hear it for the first time, you're like,
I feel like so many of her more recent albums have been, like, you listen to it the first time and you're like, okay, I'm not sure how I feel. But, like, I have enough faith in her that I'm going to give this, more chances.
And it always grows on you.
Why do you feel like it's different now that we're, like, older with her later albums than it was when we were younger? Like, when those songs came out, when you immediately heard the songs from Red, Fearless, like, those albums, like, you're like, wow, this is so fun, this is great, this is a good song.
I feel like it's, like, mainly because when I was younger, like, I wouldn't listen to it right when it came out. Like, I'd hear a few of, like, the singles on the radio or something, and I'm like, okay, this is really good, and then I'd like it enough from that and hearing it so many times that I'd, like, get the CD.
Yeah.
And so you're, like, already so much more invested in it, so it, like, has a different effect than, like, waiting till midnight and then hitting play and think, what do I think about
and
this?
having no idea what to expect. Because she's not even releasing, like, singles anymore ahead of time of the album.
Yeah.
So you got just no clue what you're getting into.
Now everything is, like, immediate.
Does anybody have favorite songs on Torture Poets that they would want to dive into a little bit?
I feel like it depends. If you're talking about, like, just a catchy song or, like, a song that's really interesting to dissect.
I mean, I don't know, why do I need to like pull up the
Yeah.
track list right now? Because I also think that like I really loved the anthology, the second album that she released at whatever time in the middle of the night
or something. I don't know. It's different here also because it's based on like East Coast time. I feel like what's something that's really interesting about the album is the way that at least I feel like you can hear the difference between the Joe Alwyn songs and then the new songs, like the Maddie Healy and Travis Kelce songs. I feel like the Joe Alwyn songs feel very past tense. She's not speaking in past tense, but she doesn't, if you listen to her lyrics a lot of the times, her breakup songs and her like heartbroken songs are very much like reminiscent and like holding on to stuff, and she talks a lot, there's a lot of lyrical motifs about remembering and making sure it was real, and like I remember it all too well, you know, like it's about keeping, like holding on to what you can and learning from it. And this one is like, all the Joe Alwyn songs are very much like, it's over, it's dead, like, you know, I stopped CPR after all, it's no use, like it's dead, I'm not trying to hold on to it, I'm letting it go, and it feels more past tense. And then the Travis Kelce, Maddie Healy ones feel more current, it's like this is what she's currently going through. It's more angsty, it's more in line with her previous stuff, like I keep finding his things in drawers, crucial evidence, I didn't imagine the whole thing, I'm sure like that's the I'm holding on to it that we've seen before.
I do feel like though a lot of the songs to me feel like they're an amalgamation of emotions from like multiple relationships she's in, when like people have made arguments that like it's about Joe, like it's about Maddie, it's about Travis, like whatever. I feel like some of them I'm like it can be about like all of those or multiple of those or things like that, when like you felt a similar emotion from like two different relationships, or even like but Daddy I Love Him, like people are like, no, it's about Maddie, no, it's about Travis and stuff like that, and I feel like it's about Travis because it ends well, but at the same time like it's really just a song about like the judgment she's felt from people having opinions about her relationships, and that doesn't have to be like confined to one person, one relationship, and it's probably also about like emotions she's felt in past relationships and things like that.
I really appreciate how in a single album she's able to like collect all of her feelings she's having about her relationships at once, because that's human. Like, you know, you could be in a relationship currently that's going well, but you're still processing your feelings from like that past relationship that lasted a lot of years that you're like transitioning into this new one with, that situationship that like got, you know, got you for like a good couple months, like whatever. And she's talking all about that, like it's like you're actually singing to your, like in her mind, like she's thinking about all these things at once, and we get to hear it all at once, and I think that's like, it's very humanistic and cool.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how like as soon as an album comes out, people are like wanting to categorize each song about like what man it's about or what past relationship, and I mean it's just kind of interesting to like consume that content, but it's also really just, I love to listen to the songs and just kind of appreciate them separate from like the relationships or whoever she's referencing in the songs, which I mean, I feel like that's just a different way to appreciate the album.
Yeah. Well, and also after like 2 weeks, you're like, no, actually she wrote this about me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with her. It's actually, she read my journal and she wrote a song about my life. Why don't we talk a little bit about some of the stuff you guys have written about this year? Claire, you wrote a little bit about consumerism and vinyl variants, and that's been part of a larger conversation with like Billie Eilish as well. So do you want to talk just a little bit about what you touched on in your article and introduce that?
Yeah, so I focused my article on mostly the vinyl variants that Taylor has been continuously producing and like promoting, and I focused more on the Tortured Poets department as it was most recent, and she split that, like, so there's the Tortured Poets department and then there's the anthology that came out a few hours after the original album, and that was like a surprise album. But since the original Tortured Poets was just promoted as a single album, there were so many people out there who bought the vinyls, the many different vinyls available just for that single album. And then it gets announced that it's a double album, and then that's just another ploy for everybody to have to go buy another vinyl to get the full.
Has she made a vinyl for the anthology yet?
I don't think so.
I mean, I assume she will eventually, but I don't think it's on vinyl yet, which is so
That was my thing with
strange.
Midnights too, because I don't think she ever released a Midnights 3 a.m. edition.
No.
It was you could only have the original album. And what I think is interesting with the Tortured Poets Department ones is how she marketed each floor. So it was like an exclusive song, a different exclusive song, and then she just released them the same day.
Yeah.
On streaming. So it's kind of like you don't actually get anything exclusive.
Right, yeah. So on the Tortured Poets Department vinyl, there were 4 different variants, and each one had one of 4 exclusive bonus songs. But then when the double album was released a couple hours after midnight, which is called Tortured Poets Anthology, all of those songs plus 11 other songs were on there available on streaming. So the vinyls still have the exclusive bonus song.
Yeah.
But it also everyone else can listen to it.
Has like jet fuel like gone up in like has it been inflated or something? Like is she trying to like get another private jet? Like she you know.
It's gotten to the point where it's over the top, and so many people buy into it because they want to collect every single variant that comes out, and it's promoted in a way on her part that's like encouraging to like collect them all, which I think is like problematic because nobody needs like 9 different vinyls of the same album that are all different colors. But it's like also it's not the best for the environment because the way the vinyls are produced, it's like it's definitely not ecologically friendly. And so when Billie Eilish came out and kind of just like called her out on it and saying, not by name, but indirectly called her out, that I think that just brought some needed attention that also just like her fans kind of need to reflect on, is this really what we need to be doing? But also I think Taylor has the responsibility to say this has gotten to the point where it's like excessive and we need to rein this in. Like, sure, produce a vinyl for each album, like fine, but don't do it in a way that you're encouraging all your fans who will literally do anything that you say to buy them.
It feels like manipulative because she knows that she has that control. Like they are her hive. You know? And to encourage something as ridiculous as this that is clearly just putting money in her pockets, like you know, if you take like any intro to econ class, you can see like you know like what's really going on here, but her fans are so like young and malleable that like they don't see behind the like what she's getting out of this. They think they're getting everything out of this by collecting these vinyls and not understanding like the negative impact it's making.
I will say, I think what's interesting is that, like, because it's obviously not just Taylor Swift doing this, like, vinyl variants are a huge thing. And even Billie Eilish has, like, several variants. Yeah. Which, I mean, it's cool to have, like, options for your vinyl, I guess. But what's interesting is that vinyl sales and CD sales and stuff like that contribute so much to, like, whether people are considering the album a success and stuff now. So if she were to go down to having like 2 vinyl variants now, people would probably be like, oh, her album flopped or whatever. Like there is like a point she's at where it's like there is no winning for her in terms of like she's either going to be flopping or, but it's better to be like, oh, you're flopping probably than to be producing excessive amounts of plastic. But it's just like it is so interesting that like
I just don't get how she can like flop at anything at this point. I feel like,
but people call her a flop. Yeah, you know.
I will say also to add because of, and this is not like, okay, yes, I've bought multiple vinyls, but like I have a lot of them. I know I don't like
this plays about me.
This is unbiased journalism.
I'm extremely like passionate about the environment and stuff, I promise. But in this era of streaming, I wrote an article about this a couple weeks ago too. You in order for a stream to count, you have to play a certain amount of the song, and it doesn't make you nearly as much money as it used to buy a CD, to buy a vinyl, when that was the main way of playing stuff. So they have to push anything that they can. Artists have to push physical sales because they get a lot more out of physical sales than they do out of streaming. Streaming gets basically nothing compared to physical sales. So physical sales are a lot more fruitful than streaming. It's not just like oh, I want to do this because I can.
Because I want to top the charts or something.
Yeah. But again, I think, of course, overconsumption is a massive issue in our society as a whole. And I think, of course, people who have influence have a responsibility to not convince, but to sort of, the word is getting my brain, but to promote ecologically friendly behavior. I think that they do have an influence for that, but a responsibility to do that. But at the same time, it's such a large societal issue that I don't think there's necessarily any merit in pointing fingers at specific individuals and being like, you're causing the problem. And I know that's not what you guys are saying. I'm saying you're causing the problem because you're producing this. It's like, no, you're playing into a society that promotes this and demands this of you. And it's kind of harder to blame people for doing that because that's what society demands. Like, because we live in such a capitalist society, consumption is a much bigger overall problem. And yes, she's not helping by promoting it, but she's also not creating. She's playing the game.
Yeah. And I think, like, I mean, that conversation is, like, the same under, like, the breath of the whole, like, she flies to, like, her, you know, when she, like, can't find the remote, she, like, gets in her private jet and flies to the other side of the campus, you know? Like, she's, like, you know, always using her private jet and emitting carbon. And people have been, like, calling her out on that and, like, whatever. And, you know, if Taylor Swift fan, like, lets you defend this when she's in the even, like, there's all these other celebrities who produce more carbon than her, but they don't call them out on it. It's because, like, I think the reason why they point fingers is because she's the most accessible celebrity that they can do that they can start voicing their, like, concern for their environment at.
And she has so much influence. Like, it is true that people will look to her behavior and the things that she says.
And it's not like she hasn't used her voice politically before.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it's not unreasonable to sort of expect that. Yeah. Of course, I don't think she's under an obligation necessarily to use her voice to change society. I don't think that's what she signed up for. But I do think that because she has so much influence, it would be responsible of her.
I think there's, like, a back and forth here. Like, she's expecting society to conform to what, like, and react and accept what, like, the art that she's putting out, and for them to want to invest emotionally, socially, and financially into what she's putting out there, then they should expect a more model behavior out of her. I think it's a two-way street with the artists and the fans, and someone as big as Taylor Swift and, like, how much she's gained from her fans. I feel like, you know, for sharing her art, that it is fair to expect that she models that behavior.
And I think, like, since she's just such a big figure and in the news at any moment of time, like, I feel like she has the ability, if she, not that she's, like, she has to do this, but if she were to, like, change her practices with the way she markets things, and I think she's in a position where she could afford to do so. She's not, like, an emerging artist who, like, needs these streams. But I think if she kind of, like, took that step and, like, started to change the way that she does things, that could, like, change the way other musicians in the music industry is, like, changes the norm.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could be, like, a really good avenue for her to take.
Yeah.
I was working at a summer camp at the time with a lot of, like, you know, 19, 20-year-old, like, mostly girls, right? Like, a lot of girls, a lot of feminine energy, like, you know, camp counselors. And right in the middle was when Swiftie Clara was happening. like a half of the staff went, people couldn't go, flew to LA to watch the parents were there. But it was, like, it was all consuming. It was all, like, when we were, like, doing our work, when we were with the kids, whatever, they would always play Taylor Swift. They'd always talk about, like, the outfits they were buying, if they made enough bracelets. Like, they would literally make bracelets, like, while we were at work, like with the kids. Like it was like this all consuming thing, and then I feel like you accept Taylor Swift as not just like this person's favorite artist, but she is like a cultural phenomenon. Like she is embedded in this, and like that was really interesting for me to see as someone who like, you know, isn't as close like as a fan as that. But yeah, it was insane.
Yeah. I don't know what to say about the cultural impact other than like how it blows my mind. It's crazy.
Yeah. But also, like, from a feminist perspective, it's just cool. It's just good to see, like, a woman, you know, winning.
That's all I have for today. This was our last episode of the quarter and my last show as the host, as I'll be graduating in 2 weeks. But we hope to be back in the fall with a new host and new stories to tell. It was my dream for the past 2 years to create a podcast for the California Aggie, and KDVS allowed that dream to come true with this show. I'm so grateful to have had this opportunity to tell the stories of the Davis community, and I'm grateful to all those who have tuned in. Thanks for listening. This was Agricola.